is happening. And we have to remember that this has nothing to do with intellectual understanding.
Right.
The mind can be in a fog, but still the inner being is awakening. Things are brightening up inwardly in terms of consciousness, and the collective is really spiraling up at this point. It is happening.
Well, that's why it's so refreshing to have chats with you and other people like you that are in the know, because sometimes down here it looks pretty bleak, with the chemtrails overhead and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Now, you had a near-death experience, and I'm curious about, I've had people on my show in the past, like Daniel Brinkley and PMH Atwater and so on and so forth, but who talk about a lifetime review that happens when you cross over to the other side. And what is your personal experience of a near-death experience, and how do you see that how do you see it working?
Well, I guess first of all there's a technical distinction in near death and death. I really did die because there were people taking my pulse and my heart had stopped, and my breath had stopped. So I know that I physically died, but there was no time, I guess, for a review.
Oh.
What I reviewed was, because I had this woman standing over me who has some shaman abilities. She herself had been pulled back from the other side when she had died.
Oh.
And so she then knew how to do that inwardly. And so she saw right away that it wasn't time for me to die, that I was needed on the planet because I have a particular dharma to do, and I've been wired in a certain way inwardly to do it, and there's no one else wired in that particular way.
Uh-huh.
So she really felt strongly, and her guidance was, no, she needs to come back. So my attention, I think, at that point, if you could call it that, of course the mind and body and emotional body are out of the loop at that point. So it's just the universal self that's going through the debate. But my debate was, do I really have to go back? Human life is difficult, and
no kidding.
I had put in a lot of work, and I was tired, and I thought, is there any way to play this from the other side, to stay and support it from the other side? Is there any way to hand off the torch to somebody else?
Right.
And at that point, she called me again and said, no, Lucia, you have to get back in your body. And at that point, I debated, all right, she's right, I have to come back into my body and finish the work, and if I'm going to do that, I'm out, right? I'm completely formless at this point. How should I go back in? And I made a decision to come back in as the embodiment of all 12 dimensions, because that would mean that the work that I'm doing on the planet would be the most powerful possible. Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So no review. I didn't get the privilege of having a review of my life. Maybe I have that to look forward to.
Wow. Well, now speaking of the dimensions, we are theoretically moving through some of these dimensions. There's the Schumann resonance, of course, for our wonderful planet, and she seems to be evolving into a higher realm. Is it possible that we're going to have that experience as well of moving through the dimensions at some point?
What does that mean to you, moving through the dimensions?
Well, moving out of duality and limitation and the need for a physical body, moving into a light body, or moving one's light body out of the duality of material realms.
Well, definitely the answer to the first part of the question, I think, is yes, we're moving out of duality. Are we going to maintain our bodies or have a light body? That I have not a clue. But, we're moving into the vibration of what within the personal self, the subtle physical body, is the heart chakra or energy center. And that's balance, that's unity, that's unconditional love. So one way or another, by hook or by crook, we're all moving there, like it or not. Some of us may choose to leave because we don't like that, right? We want to hang on to the old third-dimensional duality.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I suppose those people may go someplace else and continue to play games in duality. I don't know. But, yeah, I mean, that's sort of where we're headed, and how we get there is the question. Do we play it out in the physical world, or do we play it out in terms of consciousness?
What would that look like if we were to play it out in consciousness?
Oh, we'd just be there. We can go there any time. We can just snap it. So, you know, but that's a little bit esoteric. My philosophy is to say each of us, because we participate in the collective, right? The collective is just that, a collective of consciousness, individual consciousness. And so if each of us is willing to take responsibility and do the work for clearing ourselves and coming back into balance, then that's just one more individual consciousness that's in balance, and that immediately impacts the whole. Because really, one person's consciousness, if they are evolved, if they actually awaken, offsets the lower vibrating consciousness of thousands of people. So it's not so much numbers we're looking for, numbers of people, but it's percentage of consciousness. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yes, I do. It's almost similar to the pyramid theory that it takes so much energy to create one conscious being on the planet. But at this particular time, it seems that we're all being given the possibility of raising our consciousness and experiencing a higher consciousness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And at some point there should be a tipping point that will become obvious to those who are working in this area, that will assure us that we have made that kind of shift.
Yeah.
Now, have you noticed a lot of people are curious about what's causing the mass die-offs of different species of animals around the globe. And, of course, that, like everything, it could have multidimensional explanations. What's your take on that?
You know, I've discussed this with my friend Anelia just the other night. We were looking into it because we keep tabs on the global elite, and, you know, there are different people who are working directly with them to help the global elite raise consciousness and return to light. And so we were asking ourselves the question, are we okay for now? Is there anything else that needs our attention in terms of the global elite? And the answer was no. And we began scanning and looking for other situations, and that came up in the discussion. And we meditated on it for a moment, and what we both saw was that it appears to be that someone is playing with frequencies, that they're directing frequencies at a particular species to see if they can target a species and change the vibration. You see?
Yes.
It's part of the mind control game that's being played, and it's very sophisticated. We know little about it.
Yeah.
But I think that's why individual species are dropping. It's not all birds fall from the sky. It's just blackbirds, right? Or
exactly.
Just crabs in the UK, or just a certain type of fish. And so I'm not sure if they are succeeding or failing. They may actually be failed experiments if they are trying to bring blackbirds under control and make them behave a certain way, and they're over-amping them and killing them off. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. But I think it is preparation for trying to hone in on different segments of society or cultures and control.
Yes.
Yeah, and so we traced the line back, and we said, is this being perpetrated by the global elite? And the answer was no. It appeared to us to be, on the inner planes, a sort of rogue military element Someone who's just taken a left turn, some general in charge of mind control someplace who's really kind of gone offline.
Well, there are a lot of those, aren't there?
I think there are.
I mean, that's almost all that's left at the moment.
Yeah, rogue.
All the black operations, and no one knows which one is doing what, and they're all operating on their own, authority, and they're all egomaniacs. So, that seems very likely.
We're actually, I have a Facebook group called Women Standing in Our Power, and last year we focused on a particular company and the CEO of the company. I won't mention the name, but it's a very problematic company. And there's a woman in Germany who is an expert dowser, and she can douse to calibrate consciousness. So we had her douse or calibrate the consciousness of this company at the beginning and then at the end. And there was a huge shift in consciousness.
Wow.
What we're going to be tackling now is this rogue element. And I put up a post called Rogue, what did I call it? Dead Animals and Rogue Elements.
Oh.
So my Facebook group gets involved in things like this. There are women who really want to do energetic work and help to change the world, and they're working to change themselves, of course, but then they want to step up to the plate and do something as a group. And so we're going to begin to focus on that very issue. Interesting you should bring it up, Lance.
Yeah. Well, whatever comes into my head just kind of cycles through my mouth.
Are you psychic, do you think?
Well, maybe. A little empathic, maybe. The other thing that seems interesting is that everything has a flip side. So, Facebook could be seen as a backdoor to various alphabet soup agencies, but on the other hand, here you are empowering women to change the consciousness of, at the corporate level, which is such an ugly manifestation on the planet today. It's like an octopus that's sucking the lifeblood out of everything that has life force. And there's a particular company that I don't care for. I mean, there's quite a few you could, go down a line, but there's one that's doing a lot of genetic modification, and it just seems to be an tireless resource. It just goes on and on and on. And so we need people like you to help bring this balance and shift the consciousness. Do you think that that's possible within some of these groups that are just seem to be diehard set on their plans?
Absolutely. I mean,
good.
The more of us focusing on it, the better. But the trick is, it's what we were saying earlier. People are being given an ultimatum now. This is no longer acceptable. Genetically engineering food is really no longer acceptable if you don't know the outcome, right? And the trick really is, if you're going to do that kind of energetic work, to bring to rest within yourself any bias that you have, right? And it comes back to the message of my book, which is there's nothing wrong with a patriarchy. The patriarchy is about the navel chakra or energy center, the third dimension, the third chakra, learnings about power, and at the present time on the planet, learnings about abuse of power. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a necessary stage that humanity has had to go through. But that stage is over. It has culminated, and so it is no longer tolerated to inject darkness into the planet, right? So if you can bring your issues with regard to genetic engineering to rest within yourself, to see that, there are certain individuals who are playing that out, there are certain learnings that are taking place. If you can take the charge off of it within yourself, then you stand in balance, and you're able to look in meditation, energetically direct your attention or love or light to the CEO or the company, right? That's the way you return something to light. You have to bring it to light within yourself first. Otherwise, you're just projecting whatever the charge is that you have on it out on the company.
That's right.